next month. So that's a focus that we have on common citizens, that they want to be digitally empowered and they want to have access to services that they deserve. Let me talk about, since I will try to address some issues that NRBs face as they think about opportunities in Bangladesh, as they think about starting out ventures. I mean, I've tried to look through my own eyes as an NRB and have come up with top 6 concerns that an NRB has in terms of trying to start something in Bangladesh as far as technology is concerned. The first one is NRB must feel very confident that there is a capable and ethical partner in Bangladesh that he or she can work with towards a long-term win-win relationship. As an NRB, I partnered with several IT companies. My US companies benefited from that. The Bangladeshi companies obviously benefited from that relationship as well. And that was about 10 years ago. And if you look at the industry now, the BASIS president will talk about details of what the industry stands, how many companies there are, how many companies are actually exporting services and software to countries in different parts of the world. Situation has significantly improved. I'm talking about 10 years ago when I did a lot of outsourcing for a span of about 5-6 years. So I think you should all feel confident that you will find the right partner and you will be able to strike the right kind of relationship. And 3 presenters in the morning session, 3 American presenters talked about how they're setting up relationships of that nature. The second area is that the investment climate. Again, much was said in the morning and many of you probably came a little late. I'll repeat some of the vital statistics there that would hopefully give you confidence that Bangladesh has a very positive investment climate now and you will not lose your money hopefully. In April of 2010, Standard & Poor's published the first ever sovereign credit rating of Bangladesh, assigning it a BB- rating with a stable outlook on both its foreign and local currency bond ratings. Bangladesh was also assigned its first sovereign rating of Ba3 by Moody's Investor Services. The same as the Philippines and Vietnam. I mean, those are the success stories that we talk about in recent times, Philippines and Vietnam. So Bangladesh ranks with them now. And the new public-private partnership policy that was just drafted, and I was part of the drafting team, has a distinct focus on non-resident Bangladeshis coming up with public-private partnership ideas and investing in Bangladesh. So there is some fiscal and non-fiscal incentives reserved for NRBs in that policy. The third area is transparent transactions, good governance as we call it. We don't know how long we have to wait for certain permits, licenses, so on and so forth. So there I think we have significant progress that we have seen in the last couple of years. Corruption, favoritism, nepotism, these are things that NRB is very cautious about. And I think a transparent system of which you can actually track the processing. I mean, the Board of Investment has started a system through which you can track the status of your processing. So that should be an indicator of how transparent the government is trying to become. I won't say that it has become completely transparent yet. I think there is miles to go yet, but I think we're seeing very positive signs of moving towards higher degree of transparency. We have over 50 million mobile phones in the country, and the governor in the morning session talked about how mobile payments are becoming a reality in the country. In the last 2 years, we have seen 5 million utility bill payments done through mobile phones, and that's a very significant achievement of the country. Bangladesh Bank, the way payment system has been developed, and also the way the government utility service providers are opening up. And there are other ways the government is also opening up, which I'll talk about in a second. Law and order. Now I've lived in Bangladesh for 4 years, and I'm still scared sometimes to go out in the street. And that's something that I think we'll all have to recognize. The law and order situation is improving. There are dips at certain times, and I've heard from a lot of NRBs like myself the concern they express that what is the law and order situation, will I be mugged? And those fears are still there. But I think we're a resilient nation, and the NRBs have shown resilience in this country and in other countries also. So I think we have to take these things with a grain of salt. Just to quote a few statistics, I've looked at some of the UN crime statistics, and in 2009 it says that murder rate, and I'm not saying that it will be murder, but murder rate is an indication possibly. It has come down. In 2006 it was 2.6, in 2009 it was 2.1, and it was lower in 2009 than in other neighboring countries. So that's an indication of improving law and order situation. The petty thefts, mugging still goes on, and those are things that we have to deal with. The fifth point that we are all concerned about when we think that we have to spend time in the country with our family: education of our children and healthcare of our family. What is the situation there? Now, this is where I'll switch to the second area I talked about in the beginning, that the 3 H's, the head, the heart, and the hands. The heart. So when we look at the education situation in Bangladesh, it's not the greatest. My son goes to a school there, and I'm happy to see that he's actually learning world geography and world history much more than he could actually learn it in the US. I'm happy to see that he's getting an education in a culture that is important to me. I'm also concerned to see the declining educational system in the US. I arrived a couple of days ago, and I was watching this trailer about a new documentary called Waiting for Superman. I don't know how many of you have seen that, and that actually paints a very bleak picture of the US education system and how it's declining very rapidly. So I'm not trying to contrast the two, I'm just saying that there are some things that you have to sort of see through your heart and not compare hard data perhaps. There is the concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that we see in the US Constitution. And as for myself, I found that pursuit of happiness in Bangladesh. So that's just me. I'm not saying that everybody has to follow suit, everybody has to do that. But what I will like to see is that many of you will start ventures in Bangladesh, will take the risks of possibly not so great law and order situation, probably not so great education situation, perhaps not so great healthcare situation, but you will make that leap, because as I tell myself that I owe it to myself to do this at this point in my career. There's a documentary I saw several years ago where Professor Zafar Iqbal, many of you know him actually, he says that there's a very catchy line there. I remind myself of that sometimes, and I thought it would be pertinent here. If my mother is ugly, I'm not going to call a beautiful woman mother, would I? So that's how I think we look at our motherland. That's how I think we want to use emotion. We want to use our heart to look at Bangladesh. And I hope you will join in that journey. When I left the US in 2006, I was doing well in my IT business, but the internal urge that sort of took me back was overpowering. And sometimes you have to listen to that call also. I know that many of you, like me, are itching to find the right opportunity to connect professionally. A lot of you I know do a lot of philanthropy work in Bangladesh, and that's all good. I'm not saying that needs to be stopped. But now the engagement needs to be at a professional level. It has to be an extension of your professional self, what you're good at, the kinds of contribution that you make professionally in the US, that you can also make to Bangladesh. And the people there, and we've seen many presentations in the morning, there are people who will be able to work with you at the same level. Don't undermine the talent and the genius of people. We've all come from there, right? We went to the schools there, and we've done well for ourselves in this country. So don't undermine the talent and the genius of people there. I think you will need to connect with them. Electricity was talked about in the morning quite a bit, and I think Joy, Mr. Sajib Wajid, he talked about how the government is making strides, very aggressive strides in ensuring that power situation will not be a problem for the country in the next 2 years. So I hope that happens very soon. Now let me talk about what Digital Bangladesh means for a common citizen of the country. Now I just finished talking about what it means for us, NRBs. Now look through the eyes of a common citizen, and that's the most intense focus of Digital Bangladesh. The Honorable Finance Minister talked about the case that digital divide will not happen in Bangladesh. And it will not happen because we are focusing on the common citizens before the urban and the privileged. We want to make sure that the common